Ladies and gentlemen, this is TVP World. You're watching another edition of Break the Fake, where we debunk fake news and combat false narratives. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and let's get rolling. Now, Russia is not just running low on drones, tanks, and common sense anymore. Now, it's running low on air defense systems that it has already sold. According to Turkish media, the Kremlin has asked Ankara to return the S-400 missile system it purchased back in 2019. That's right, Russia sold Turkey the weapons, got paid $2.5 billion, and now they're asking if they can please have it back. The official excuse? Russia says the S-400s are unsuitable for Turkey because they're not compatible with NATO systems, which has been true since day one and somehow didn't stop them from selling the thing in the first place. What's really going on is obvious. Moscow's defense stockpiles are so depleted they're now reverse shopping from their own export list. Putin's great military power is now cold calling former customers to ask if they still have the receipt. Meanwhile, Turkey is moving on. Ankara is now building its own air defense system and hinting that it wants back into the US F-35 program it was kicked out of after buying the S-400s. So yes, there is a world where Erdogan gives the missiles back, but not as a favor, more like a trade-in. The irony? Turkey is building a new dome while Russia's roof, politically and military, has been leaking for a while now. And that's the core of it. No serious power asks for its own weapons back. Russia spent years marketing the S-400 as the crown jewel of its defense exports. Now it's begging for it like someone trying to rebuy their wedding ring from a pawn shop. When the world's second army starts reverse shopping its own military hardware, you don't need analysts to tell you how bad things really are. Recently, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky compared the visit of US Special Representative Keith Kellogg to an air defense system. Half joke, half political signal, he told Kellogg, "Every time you're here, General, the people of Kyiv sleep a little better." Then he added that he was ready to give him citizenship or even an apartment if that kept the enemy from bombing. It's funny, but it's also true. Sometimes the best shield is simply a very visible guest list.
Хочу зараз також особливо подякувати генералу Келлогу. Дійсно, раніше ми цього не знали, але виявилось, що у Сполучених Штатів є ППО не гірше, так, ніж Петріоти. Так, в Києві представник президента Сполучених Штатів Америки, президента Трампа, немає масованих ударів. Вбивці утримуються від вбивств. З представниками інших держав це не працює.
Now, predictably, the Kremlin ecosystem crashed out. Ultra-patriotic commentators and pro-government presenters started screaming about political tourism, the next provocation, and planned provocations by the West. It even escalated into threats. Strike during the visit, show that no visit will stop us, and other direct insults aimed at specific cities. Now, this is not random noise. It is propaganda as threat theater with the puppets handing out target lists.
Кстати, извините, пожалуйста, а почему мы не нанесли удар по Одессе, когда там гуляет Джонсон, Стуга и все прочее?
Это, Владимир Владимирович, мы очень...
Я этого реально не могу понять.
Мы часто обсуждали этот вопрос. Я тоже не могу понять, почему вот это, когда будет прекращен вот этот политический туризм. Я говорю, 3 вокзала всего, там 6...
Почему официально не объявить, что мы не гарантируем нахождение этих людей на территории Украины? Они могут туда приезжать на собственный страх и риск. Но мы гарантируем им небезопасность на территории Украины.
Now, when people with millions of viewers publicly joke that the streets of Kyiv should be turned into a nautical chart with an X and a date, those aren't idle quips. These jokes build an infrastructure of moral decay. They normalize threat-making, prep the audience to accept escalation, and give media cover for strikes on civilian areas. Analysts have warned for years that this rhetoric is not decorative. It is part of a hybrid campaign that primes violence step by step. There is a paradox in Zelensky's joke about come more often. It reads light, but it reveals something serious. Visibility is deterrence. the presence of Western representatives reduces the chance of large-scale attacks. And that is why pro-government propagandists hate these visits. They expose a blunt truth. Power does not only live in missiles or in slogans promising to wipe you out. It lives in diplomacy, in alliances, and in cameras that refuse to look away. The scariest thing is not one-off threats, but the pattern. When the rhetoric of "we are for peace, but ... slides into "we want peace, but we will use force on civilians," words become a script for action. The international community has to respond with more than condemnations. It needs deterrence that functions, sanctions that bite those who incite violence, and concrete measures to protect civilian infrastructure. Because laughing about dropping a bomb on Odessa when foreigners are walking around there is not humor. It is criminal logic trying on the mask of a punchline. At the end of the day, Kremlin propagandists love to talk about peaceful intentions, but what they really show is a regime willing to burn everything to stay in power. If that means filling the sky with missiles and drones, they will. If it means humiliating and terrifying civilians, they will. But there is a counterforce. As long as Kyiv can joke about an air defense general, and as long as international attention stays fixed, Ukraine has a shot at surviving another night. So Putin recently just suddenly switched into economic truth-telling mode. He admitted that July's official 0.4% GDP growth is insufficient and demanded higher rates, as if it's that easy. Now, after months of cheerful reports and public denial, this was the first time he openly put pressure on his economic bloc, and he did it loud enough for everyone to hear. When a man who normally sells miracles suddenly starts complaining about numbers, you know the magic show is over.
В июле валовой внутренний продукт прибавил 0,4% в годовом выражении. А за 7 месяцев текущего года прирост ВВП составил 1,1%. Вопрос. Этого достаточно? Это то, чего мы хотели? У нас получается решать задачу, которую мы перед собой ставили? Или нужны какие-то другие меры и более высокие темпы?
But here's the problem. Demanding higher rates in today's Russia is like ordering champagne in a desert. The war has turned the budget into a razor. Money is flowing not into investment or infrastructure, but into the military-industrial complex, the army, logistics, and endless repairs. Now, these aren't growth engines. They're costs of keeping the war machine alive, expenses that produce more wreckage than wealth. And that's only the first crack. Add sanctions, lost markets, blocked fleets, restricted access to technology and insurance, layer on failing oil and gas revenues, even squeezing the shadow economy harder won't fill that hole. On top of that, Russia is bleeding people and locked out of modern technology. Modernization is stalling because the workforce is shrinking, and the factories are running on outdated tools. You can bark at the economy all you want, but barking doesn't produce engineers. Now, everyone understands the obvious. To really ensure higher growth rates, you don't just scold officials. You end the war, you shift money from deadly spending to investments. You restore markets, financing, technology, you put funds into infrastructure and real industry, not one-off military orders. Putin's order to pick up the pace isn't economic strategy. It's theater for the domestic audience, a dictator waving his finger and showing that he's doing things instead of really fixing the problem. The public dress down shows one thing. Talking about economic trouble is no longer taboo. But if leaders think the economy is just a PowerPoint slide that can be corrected by decree, nothing will change. The answer to 0.4% growth isn't punishing officials or chanting new slogans. The answer is shifting priorities, away from militarization and isolation and towards investment, integration, and peace. Without that, higher rates will remain exactly what they are now, another item on Putin's wish list. And with that, we conclude this edition of Break the Fake. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.